It's no secret that everyone can benefit from therapy, but sometimes not everyone has the means to seek help. And in some cultures, not everyone has the support. In Woodbury, a group of mental health professionals found a different way to reach the Hmong community. As Pauline Lee shares, it's a way to make sure that every Hmong person knows that they are not alone.
Vanguard Mental Health and Wellness Clinic is normally the place people go to talk. But this afternoon,
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
It's a place you'll find something to listen to.
Hello again, and thank you for joining us.
A podcast created for the Hmong community by the people who understand the culture as well as anyone.
We are not only utilizing our training as Western trained mental health providers, but we're also utilizing our lived experiences as a Hmong person so that we're connecting the two.
Dr. Alyssa Kaying Vang is the clinical director at Vanguard. She created the podcast as a way to push back against misinformation on social media and as a chance to reach the younger Hmong generation.
Especially in our Hmong community, because we can be so negative and we can be so conscious of shame.
In Hmong culture, mental health can be seen as taboo. Dr. Vang says traditional Hmong practices focus on the spiritual and the physical, but any mention of the mental struggles can be taken as a weakness.
Many of them grew up with mental health conditions that they themselves thought, I'm struggling from anxiety, I'm struggling from depression. But then when they talk to their parents would say, well, that doesn't exist, or, don't talk about that.
But these therapists want to do just that. They want to talk about it.
Generations after generations, it's been survive. That's all that matters. Work, provide food on the table, have a house over your head. We haven't had much of that opportunity to have that conversation of, do we get a focus on the feelings? Do we get a focus on being that best version of ourselves? Or what do we want to do outside of just providing?
The format of the Hmong Mental Health Podcast is simple. 4 therapists gathered around a table, having a conversation that anyone might have with their own friends. But the topics are a bit more complicated. This episode's focus, knowing your worth.
How do you build your self-worth so that when you're in the community, you know how to say no, you know how to build boundaries, and you also know where and why you want to invest your energy in places.
They recognize the power of sharing stories.
When we get to sit across from someone who looks like us, who sounds like us, who has some similar experiences with us and can understand what we're talking about, I think that goes a long way in helping us feel validated and acknowledged.
Those stories are mostly shared in English, but sometimes Hmong words can express something other languages just can't.
Hmong community, there's a lot of proverbs that are done and said that has deeper meanings that we probably can, if we were to translate it into English, it would get lost in translation.
When we talk about using depression in Hmong and we talk about Nyo Sha, now we're also using this podcast to also teach this newer and younger generation Hmong words.
And it's not just the listeners getting educated in something new, but also the therapists. The transition to podcasters didn't exactly come easy. Aside from having to learn the new technology, it also took some time to find the right voice.
From a therapist to a podcaster, yes, I still want to hold that clinical lens. However, as a podcaster, I still want to be myself too, because I am my own person, I am a human, have my own emotions and experiences too.
And this is a place where that can happen, where the therapists can open up more than they might in their normal practice. Because while the podcasts cannot take the place of traditional therapy, it's still a way to help.
When someone picks up this podcast and say, wow, that made me really think about this, or wow, I got into therapy because of the podcast, I think it's one step forward in terms of a person taking a journey to really being that very best version of themselves and finding who they are.
Pauline Lee, WCCO News.
Now, a story of hope after tragedy. A Minnesota man is riding his bike around the whole exterior of the country to raise money for 2 causes. He wants to bring awareness to cancer and schizophrenia, 2 things that have greatly impacted his life. WCCO's Tony Peterson and Jeff Wagner caught up with Scott and learned more about his trip.
It was a match made in,
believe it or not, Match.com.
Scott and Katie Freitag were married in 2017. That's where the wild ride began.
We were only married for a couple months when I said we were at the time in our life where we needed to have physicals. He was reluctant because he felt really good. And we found out that his PSA was elevated, and a biopsy confirmed aggressive prostate cancer.
What hits you first is, I guess, oh my God, I got cancer.
It's not something I was expecting to hear.
A PSA, or prostate-specific antigen, can detect prostate cancer by taking a simple blood test. The newlyweds battled Scott's cancer together, even through COVID, then a phone call.
No, that's a phone call that I guess no parent ever wants to get. I mean, it's brutal. The battle that people have with mental illness, I think, is a real one.
Scott's son, Benny, had died from suicide.
I've always been a never give up kind of person.
Then he got an idea.
Well, a lot of people bike across the United States, but I haven't heard of anyone biking around the United States. And I thought about that bike trip and how I could use that to honor my life and his life.
With everything he's been through, if this is what his dream is, then let's make it happen.
So they did. Katie drives the truck, pulling a 30-foot trailer, following Scott on his bike. She has two other companions.
Our Yorkie, who's 14, toothless and a little bit deaf. Our golden retriever, who is 85 pounds, 4 years old, and full of energy.
Already 2,900 miles into the 11,000-mile trek, they plan to arrive back in Minnesota next June.
If you have a dream, go do it. Live your dream. Tomorrow's not promised to any of us.
These adorable dogs were just rescued from some extremely harsh conditions. They spent their entire life in a laboratory until now. We were there for the moment they finally got to enjoy one of life's simplest pleasures for the first time. Kirsten Mitchell has the story.
These beagles don't know it yet.
Hi, guys!
But they're about to experience a grassy yard for the first time.
Beagle number 1. Welcome to freedom.
The big world can be scary.
Come on, buddy.
Especially for these dogs who've only known the walls of a laboratory.
You're gonna love it.
Canadian-based rescue, the Beagle Alliance, rescued them from a lab in the Midwest.
I can't tell you what laboratory they're from. That's confidential.
It's also unclear what was done to them. Most dogs are used for biomedical or drug testing.
There's some decompression to happen and just love and patience, and slowly they come out of their shells.
More than 250 U.S. institutions report using dogs in experiments each year. The majority are companies, community or technical colleges, and public universities.
Beagles are the most used breed of dog in laboratory testing because they're docile, they're forgiving, and they easily fit into a cage, unfortunately.
Some states, including Minnesota, have laws that require labs, when possible, to offer dogs to shelters for adoption.
Most animals are euthanized after study, and they don't have to be. As we know, they could go on to live longer lives outside of the cage than inside the cage.
Volunteer Kathy Meyer knows this firsthand, adopting two of her own dogs from animal testing.
Seeing my dogs and what they've been through and overcome, and knowing that they're on their way to a great life is just amazing.
That's the Beagle life right there.
Still to come, mentorship turned into the most meaningful friendship, the program that gave this young man support for a lifetime.